So when men would come over to the house, I always found myself sitting on some man's lap. But I was the wrong one, not the adults. My name is Kyla Hall. I'm a grateful recovering addict. I was born a twin, me and my twin sister. Unfortunately, my mother died 2.5 weeks after we were born. So my grandmother or grandparents adopted and raised us as their own. One day waking up like I normally would, right? I heard voices in the living room. And so I walked towards my mother's voice. And I met this man. And she introduced him as being my uncle. And I just remember him picking me up and trembling at first sight. His eyes were dark, like black. And from that moment, it was just very, I don't know, just kind of weird, right? So he lived with us, stayed. He was one that was in and out of the penitentiary a lot. So my grandmother had a gambling addiction. So her too was an addict, right? And we would be left alone with my uncle to babysit, watch us, right? He was the only one pretty much living at home. And when she would leave, all I know is that at night, he would come in our bedroom and he would put his hand over my mouth and he would start, like feeling on me really roughly, right? And dared me to cry or spank me to shut up. It was just torment right there. And he would touch me in my private areas, roughly. And then, make me rub his and things of that nature. I knew it was something terribly wrong about that, right? But I'm a kid. And all I know to do is just trust the immediate people. But I was too afraid to tell anybody because I didn't believe anybody would believe me. And he would throw me in hot water in the tub all the time. And I remember talking to my twin sister because he did it to her too. And it seemed like every time we began to talk, he would just come and burst into the room and make us like whisper. Maybe that was his conscience, I don't know. And then it got so bad where he killed our dog. He stabbed her in her chest. And he brought her dead body in front of us and said if we dared to utter a word, that he would kill our mom. And I couldn't understand it because that was his mother too. So that was enough to see something that I love so much. So I didn't. So I felt like it was something wrong with me. Like, why would somebody be so horrible to me? Do these type of things to me? And yet I was born and raised in the era of you were to be seen and not heard. So my voice already, as a little girl, let me know that it wasn't important how I felt. And then when I did speak, I would be so quick to have my turn to talk till I start stuttering, because it's two of us and I remember, right? So I just didn't know what to think. I mean, I got taunted as a child, they called me uncully names, egghead, boxhead. So I got name called in my home, bullied when I got outside of my home, so there was no room for any self-esteem. It was already stripped before I even left the house and became very promiscuous and didn't even know that's what it was. They called it fast growing up. And it wasn't that. But here's a grown-ass man touching me. A lot of times I couldn't go outside and play because I had to be in the house with him until they got finished with me. And I'd be in so much pain until I had the energy to go and play. All I wanted was somebody to fix me because I was so broken. So I looked for that in relationships, friendships. I wanted to always spend the night somewhere else. Didn't want to be home. The molestation and the rape, that happened very early on, right? So it was something that I expected to happen ongoing. That happened from the age of 4 to the age of, I want to say 9. Yeah. And then it became just physical abuse. Always just beating me for no reason. Just hitting me, slapping me. Talking down about my mom, his sister, his own mother, my grandmother. Always told me that I ain't shit. I'm never going to be shit, because I was dumb. So all the things that he said, I believed, I didn't even try. At 21 is when it got exposed, and that was by mistake. When I exposed my uncle to be the predator and and all this other stuff. And my uncle was in awe about it, right? And of course he told his siblings. And my oldest aunt, his oldest sister. And then at this point, my uncle had passed, the one that did all this harm to me. My aunt didn't believe me. She actually thought that all I did was created all these horrible stories about her brother. And I was like, I don't, what would make you think that I would just sit here and create such ugliness about your brother, my uncle? Like, I ain't got nothing else to do with my life or time. And, she cursed me, everything. But at that moment, I didn't care anymore. But that was another moment that made me go back to that little girl who was scared to say a word because she knew that she was not going to be believed. I just turned 21. My uncle was treating us to a brunch, a birthday brunch, me and my twin sister. And so we were just talking about my mom, and everything. And he was just really pretty much giving us positive affirmations on so proud of you guys. And, growing up, I knew it wasn't easy, just any other. And, he was just when you start talking about your sister, his sister, then you just start talking about his brothers or how they were, how they grew up and the things that came about in their path. And he was just talking about how disturbed he knew my uncle was, his brother. He was just always have to be the center of attention. He would just do bring weed at a high school basketball game. Just doing the most outrageous sort of things, right? Embarrassment, of course, that came about. And I don't know, in that moment when he was talking about, some of the things that he thought that was disturbing, all of a sudden this came out, he molested me. He raped me. And when I said it, I felt like he was about to come and beat me again. But that's almost 15 years later. I still was afraid of this man's presence, even though he was very absent. So then I started experimenting drugs. That made me feel not a part of, right? Separate from them. And I always felt like I was different because I was treated differently. I liked it because it made me not have to feel my feelings, right? It made me not have to think about all the wrong and disappointment that I had, with my family. It made me get into a fantasy realm, and I liked it. And I always wanted to stay there as long as I could, as much as I could. All I knew to do was to compare myself with others, compare myself with others. That's all I knew to do. I wanted to be light-skinned because they were. I wanted to have long, beautiful hair because they did. I would put makeup on, shorts in the wintertime. Anything to sit and get attention. That was me. So when men would come over to the house, and it was family and friends, don't get me wrong, right? I always found myself sitting on some man's lap. Get your fast off of there. What did I do? They told me to come sit on their lap, pick me up and set me there. So now I'm wrong because I'm sitting on a man's lap, be it a family member or not. What? But I was the wrong one, not the adults. Then I started experimenting with cocaine. So I did that for a couple of years and then I kind of stopped. But in my experimenting, people were doing other things like crack, cocaine. I was in a relationship with someone who was solely addicted to the crack, which made me curious. And I tried it, but I didn't know what the high was. I had no idea. But when my twin sister got off into it, it made me that much more curious about what would make my sister be the way she had become. People talked about her so bad, mistreated her. The families associated themselves with her. And I ran that much closer towards it and towards her to try to save her from myself. So, yeah. So I started chasing the drug and not even understanding the high, but I was going through the motions. So the more I did it, the more it started affecting me. I was so very productive at that time. So I did this for about a year. And that was in 1988. In 1988, I got pregnant because all I did was live to use and use to live. That's all I did. It became my everything. Then found out that I was pregnant with my second child. But I was already addicted. Smoking crack. And I kept telling myself, next month, I'm going to stop because I'm pregnant. And each month that went past, I got smoking even that much more. But I couldn't stop. With all my efforts, I couldn't stop. So in 89, March of 89, I had this baby, addicted to crack. 3 months later, I gave her up for adoption. I got put out of my house, my family home. I became homeless with this infant. I couldn't keep taking her to houses because that's what I did. Every day I had to figure out where me and her was going to go. So I ended up stopping shortly after the adoption process. And I managed to stay stopped for about maybe a year and a half. I started using again. And I get pregnant again. Same thing. Couldn't stop. I had another baby. I ended up going to treatment with my baby. And I managed to stay stopped for about maybe a good 2.5 years. Ended up getting pregnant. I hadn't relapsed at that moment, but I had an abortion. Then I did relapse maybe 3 months after, right, of the abortion, because I relapsed. Couldn't deal with the fact that I had an abortion. I started using drugs again to get pregnant again. And I stopped using and went into treatment with my youngest daughter and my unborn son. Maybe my second trimester. So he was very blessed and fortunate to be born free of drugs. My two youngest father, I met him. And we started to date. And while I was in treatment, and I stayed in treatment for maybe a good year and a half before we got serious in our relationship. And he was everything that I needed him to be. He was the Mr. Fix-It, you know? He was my security blanket. He was stable, I wasn't. And he had become my confidant. He was everything that I wasn't. He was stable, like I said, had security. I was unemployable. Again, still broken. And he was going to be Mr. Fix-It. And he was just that. But I couldn't stay clean for any long periods of time. So I'd go back to using. He would be stuck with the kids, you know? And then that began to anger him. But what it was is that while I was under the influence, I started relinquishing control to him, right? It got so bad until whatever he said, I done. Whatever he decided, it was. But my kids were safe. That was the most important thing. At least they were safe. At least I placed them in an environment where at least one of us wasn't using. It was about the kids. My decision, so I thought, you know? He was a great enabler. Of course he was, because he wanted to keep me where he could have full control over me. He made me isolate that much more from any family connections or any friends for the matter that had accumulated or had around me. Then it came. First it came to verbal abuse. But I felt like I was well deserving of it, because how can you go through what I've been through and still use? He would always have to pick up the pieces behind the wreckage of the storms I created. And so I was always sorry, and I act like I was sorry. I became sorry. A sorry human being at the mercy of another one. Individual to do and make all the decisions for me, because I was incapable of making any good decisions, right? So that just forced me that much more into my addiction, right? I could not stand the fact that I was with someone that I didn't love. I mean, I loved him, but I wasn't in love with him, right? Yeah. But he was a good provider. And that's all I really wanted from him, is that he would be the one that would provide a safe environment for me and my children. I had a nephew that came and lived with me, and because of my using, he harmed my daughter. So my daughter. How could I not see that? I mean, it happened to me. And how could I not protect her? So in my mind, I had failed her. Why didn't she tell me? Why did she feel that she couldn't? And when she finally did, or I got whiff of it anyway, I told her dad. And then my nephew was removed from the home. 2001 to 2009, I used every single day alcohol and crack every single day. I ended up, going to jail, on and off, getting arrested because I couldn't go to court. Just would not show up. And finally, I ended up getting a warrant out for my arrest. So, in 2009, I called my sister up and I turned myself in. And I went into a program there in jail. And that's what gave me hope. I prayed to God and asked God, Lord, please, don't let me go back out. Whenever I get out of here, the same way I came in. Because I'll surely die. So from 2009 to 2023, I was clean. I had finally gotten to a place of plateau in my life where I felt like I was safe. I had to keep running from me no more. But something still quite wasn't right. I stopped going to meetings. I didn't believe in the program anymore because so many people had wronged me. And I allowed that to shut me down. So I decided to white knuckle it. And that was fine with me. And I managed to accumulate all that time, that clean time, but with no program. Well, surely, if you're not working the program and you're not doing anything to work on yourself, it's always waiting. That disease of addiction. My job was on the line. My family was just distorted or whatever you call it. Just totally in awe of disappointment and hurt. So I stayed in my relapse from July 2024 to September 2024. Then I heard about a program out here in California. I was desperate. I got blessed with the gift of desperation. And when that came about, the first opportunity that I had to get here to California, I took. That young man would never know what he did for me when he put me on that plane to get here. So I get here last September, and I was ready and thirsty enough to do whatever they told me to do. I ended up getting a sponsor while I was in detox because we were making meetings. Getting a sponsor within 30 days of being sober. I stayed in detox for 45 days. I have a sponsor that knows she's my sponsor, who makes time for me. We make meetings. I've finally worked the 12 steps. She's my confidant, but she's absolutely the most positive role model that I've had around me and in my life for a very long time. And I'm so grateful to her. She helped going to outpatient, intensive outpatient, and the facilitators there. Oh my God. It's been life-changing for me. If my story can help somebody, I'm grateful. Me and my daughter now have a sober living. We have a sober living house. So anybody that wants help, please don't hesitate to ask. Whatever I can do to help somebody, like I said, I'm here. Get counseling, get a therapist. But don't sit and think that you can do it by yourself because you can't. We were created to need each other. So rely on that. A reliable resource.